In a time forgotten, nestled within a valley that slept beneath a blanket of silver stars, there was a night unlike any other. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, and the world was painted in shades of cobalt and pearl. On this night, a child was born. Her first cry was not a squall, but a melody, a sound so pure it seemed to quiet the crickets and still the rustling leaves. Her parents named her Leora, which means my light, for she seemed to glow with an inner radiance. But this light did not go unnoticed in the heavens. The moon goddess, Selûne, whose face was the very model of cold, unattainable perfection, paused her celestial journey. She peered down, her silver gaze piercing the thatched roof of the humble cottage. There, in her mother's arms, was the infant Leora, and Selûne, who had reigned for eons as the undisputed mistress of beauty, felt a thorn of jealousy prick her immortal heart. No mortal, this fragile, breathing creature, should dare to possess a loveliness that rivaled her own. It was an insult, a challenge written in flesh and blood. Leaning down from her silvery throne, Selûne whispered a curse, a spell woven from spite and starlight, directly onto the infant's lips. You shall be adored by all who see you, desired from afar, but you shall never be touched. For any mortal who dares to press their lips to yours will turn to cold, unfeeling stone beneath my light. As the final syllable left her lips, the baby wailed again, and a searing beam of vengeful moonlight lanced through the window, striking the wooden cradle, which smoldered with a cold, silver fire. As the seasons turned, the child Leora grew, and the curse began to weave itself into the fabric of her life. She was a strange and wondrous child. Where she walked, flowers did not simply bloom. They erupted from the earth in frantic, beautiful explosions, their petals unfurling as if to catch her passing glance. Birds would cease their songs mid-note, tilting their heads to watch her silent progress through the village. At first, the villagers were in awe, calling her a blessing, but awe soon curdled into fear. The flowers that bloomed out of season were seen as unnatural. The silent birds were an omen of ill fortune. Mothers began pulling their sons away from her, hissing warnings. "Do not look upon the cursed girl," they would say. "Her beauty is a snare set by the moon." Women crossed the street to avoid her, their eyes a turbulent mix of envy and dread. Leora learned to walk with her gaze fixed on the ground, a crown of isolation heavy upon her golden hair. Only the old midwife, who had delivered her and felt the moon's wrath firsthand, dared to show her kindness. "The moon has marked her," the old woman would mutter to anyone who would listen, but a mark is not always a stain. It could be a badge of honor. One afternoon, a brave but foolish boy, his heart captured by one of Leora's rare, lonely smiles, darted forward and tried to plant a quick, innocent kiss on her cheek. He did not turn to stone, not fully, but the moment his lips made contact, a visible, chilling frost spread across his skin, turning it blue and numb. He stumbled back, screaming of a cold that felt like death, and ran home, a living testament to the power of Selûne's curse. Leora grew into a young woman, her beauty a perfect, exquisite prison. She lived in a small cottage on the edge of the village, alone with her aging parents who loved her but feared for her. Her only true friend was her own reflection. She would spend hours by the still, dark waters of the forest pond, sitting on a mossy bank, talking to the girl in the water. "They see a monster woven from moonlight," she would whisper, her voice barely disturbing the surface. "They see a curse. But you see just me, don't you? You see the loneliness." The reflection would nod, a silent, sorrowful companion in a world of echoing silence. She confessed her smallest dreams to it. The wish to feel the sun on her skin without causing a scene, the desire to share a laugh without seeing fear in the other's eyes. She whispered her greatest fear, that she would live 100 years and never know the warmth of another's hand in hers. The reflection listened, a perfect, pitiful mimic of her own solitude. One evening, as she spoke of a life forever unloved, the water of the pond grew unnaturally still. The reflection of the moon, which should have been a broken, shimmering thing, solidified into a sharp, silver face. It was Selûne. Her voice, like the cracking of ancient ice, whispered from the depths, "You are mine to admire and mine to punish. You will never be loved. You are a portrait, Leora, beautiful to look upon, but you have no soul that anyone would dare to touch." In the same village, there lived a young man named Kale. He was the woodcarver's son, a quiet soul who spoke more with his hands than with words. His face was marked, not by otherworldly beauty, but by a jagged scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, a souvenir from a battle with mountain raiders who had threatened the village. Where others saw a flaw, a marring of handsomeness, the village children saw a story. They loved him for his gentle, capable hands that could repair a shattered toy soldier or a grandmother's wobbly rocking chair with equal care. He found his purpose not in creating new, perfect things, but in giving broken things a second life, finding the beauty in their repaired flaws. He heard the whispers about the cursed maiden, Leora. The warnings were vehement. Never look upon her, Kale. Her beauty is a deadly thing, a poison for the eyes and the heart. But where others heard a warning to be obeyed, Kale, the mender of broken things, heard a story of profound loneliness. He wondered not about the curse, but about the person burdened by it. What must it be like, he thought, to be seen as a thing to be feared, an object of beauty to be observed from a safe distance, rather than a person to be known? A spark of empathy, fierce and protective, ignited within him. Their meeting was not grand. It was as simple and as devastating as a dropped water jug. Leora was at the river, her thoughts as heavy as the clay vessel she carried. It slipped from her numb fingers, shattering on the smooth, wet stones with a final, crushing sound. She stared at the pieces, seeing in them the fractured state of her own life. Then a shadow fell over her. She flinched, expecting a curse or a thrown stone. But it was only Kale. He didn't speak. He didn't gasp at her beauty or recoil in fear. He simply knelt, his movements calm and deliberate, and began gathering the shards. From a leather pouch at his belt, he produced a piece of light, fine-grained wood and a small, sharp knife. His hands, though scarred, moved with a sure and gentle grace. With a few deft flicks of his wrist, he carved a new handle and a delicate framework, slotting the largest pieces of clay back into place, binding them with the wood and a dab of resin from a small jar. He handed her the mended jug, now more beautiful for its history of breakage and repair. Their eyes met. In his, she saw no fear, no greedy desire, only a quiet, deep recognition of a shared sense of brokenness. In that single, silent moment, Leora felt seen for the first time. The moon, sensing this fragile connection, brightened fiercely overhead, its jealous. Light hitting the river. Leora's reflection, which had been so clear, trembled and then shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces on the water's disturbed surface. Whispers, like poisonous vines, began to grow and spread through the village. The scarred woodcarver had been seen near the cursed girl's home. He had spoken to her. He had touched something she owned. The news traveled from the baker's wife to the blacksmith's apprentice, each voice adding its own layer of fear and speculation. Some spat into the dirt, muttering about fools and moonstruck madness. Others prayed quietly, fearing the goddess's wrath would fall upon them all. But Leora, in her lonely cottage, began to find small, anonymous gifts left on her doorstep. They were not of gold or jewels, but of wood. A dove, its wings meticulously carved to seem as if they were caught mid-beat, ready to fly. A star with 5 perfectly sanded points, so smooth it felt like silk. A heart, warm from being carried in a pocket, its surface polished by a caring thumb. Each was a message without words, a testament to a care that asked for nothing in return. They were left in the dead of night, a secret conversation between 2 solitary souls. She would hold them in the moonlight, tracing the grooves and curves, feeling the careful work, the love poured into the very grain of the wood. One night, a new carving awaited her, a small, perfect key, and tucked beneath it, a scrap of parchment with words written in a steady, careful hand, words that made her heart ache with a hope she had long forbidden herself. You are not alone. Driven by a courage she didn't know she possessed, Leora began to leave her own signs. A particular flower placed on a certain stump, a ribbon tied to a branch, guiding him to a meeting place. They chose the deepest, most secluded part of the forest, where the ancient oaks wove their branches so tightly that the moonlight barely dappled the mossy ground. It was the only place Leora felt safe from Saloon's ever-watchful gaze. There, with only the hooting of owls and the rustle of unseen creatures as their witnesses, she told him everything. The curse spoken at her birth, the moon's venomous jealousy, the terrifying frost on the boy's cheek, the haunting, icy words from the pond. She laid her soul bare, every fear and every lonely tear, expecting him to finally see the danger and run. Cale listened, his scarred face a mask of not pity, but of profound empathy. He sat on a fallen log, his hands resting on his knees, and he absorbed her pain as if it were his own. They see the curse, he said, his voice low and steady, like the deep rumble of the earth. I see the woman who has had to carry its weight every day of her life. He saw her loneliness, and it mirrored the isolation his own scar had often brought him. Overwhelmed by her confession and his unwavering kindness, he reached out, a slow, deliberate movement. His calloused fingers, stained with wood and life, stopped a hair's breadth from her cheek. The air between his skin and hers crackled with the tension of the unfulfilled touch, a promise and a threat held in the same breath. Far from the sanctuary of the forest, in a mansion of cold, polished marble and echoing halls, another watched with a very different interest. Lady Varen, the governor's wife, was a woman whose vanity was as deep and cold as a winter well. She spent her days gazing into mirrors of polished silver, lamenting every faint line that time was carving on her face, every strand of silver that dared to appear in her ebony hair. A servant, hoping for a few extra coins, whispered the tale of the cursed girl whose beauty was not of this earth, but a direct gift or punishment from the moon herself. They say she does not age, my lady. The servant hissed, her voice full of superstitious awe. They say her skin is like captured moonlight, and her hair flows like a river of gold. A beauty frozen in time. That night, Varen stared into her own silver-framed mirror, and her reflection seemed to shift, to deepen. A darker, more shimmering version of herself looked back, a spirit of vanity trapped in the glass. The moon's blessing can be taken, the mirror spirit whispered, its voice like the grinding of glass dust. The power is in the curse itself. When a moon is weak during the night of the blood moon, the magic wavers. Seize it then, if you dare. A terrible, greedy light ignited in Varen's eyes. She would not just mimic that beauty. She would steal it, consume it, make it her own. She would be eternal. She summoned her captain of the guard, her voice sharp with command. Find a girl called Leora. Bring her to me, unharmed. I have a proposition for her. Leora was taken not with roughness, but with a cold, formal politeness that was more frightening than brute force. She stood in the center of Lady Varen's vast, echoing hall, surrounded by tapestries and golden trinkets that felt dead and cold. Varen circled her like a predator, her eyes feasting on Leora's unearthly features, the flawless skin, the luminous eyes, the hair that seemed to hold its own light. Such a waste, Varen cooed, her voice syrupy and false. To have such a divine gift, and to live in squalor, feared by the very people you walk among. It must be a terrible existence. Stay with me. I will give you silks to wear and feasts to eat from golden plates. You will want for nothing. All I ask in return is a single, tiny drop of your essence. She presented a cruel-looking silver needle and a small, crystal vial. Just a prick, a tiny sample of the celestial power that graces you. A trade, your loneliness for my luxury. Leora looked from the needle to the desperate, hungry void in Varen's eyes. She understood this was not generosity. It was a transaction for her very soul, an attempt to bottle the curse that defined her. She straightened her back, the same pride that had isolated her for so long, now giving her an unshakable strength. "I will not," she said, her voice soft but clear, ringing in the silent hall. "My curse is my own. I will not feed your vanity with it." Varen's beautiful, carefully composed face curdled into a mask of pure, undiluted fury. Terrified of what Varen might do next, Leora fled to the forest the moment she was released. Kale found her there, trembling not from cold, but from a deep, bone-chilling fear. He had heard of the summons to the mansion. Without a word, he pulled her deeper into the safety of the embracing trees, where the air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. In the quiet gloom, he made his confession. "Leora," he began, his voice rough with an emotion he could no longer contain. "From the moment I saw you, not as a cursed beauty, but as a girl with a broken water jug, I have loved you. I love you not for your face, but for the strength I see in you. For the loneliness I recognize in your eyes, a loneliness that speaks to my own." Her heart soared like the dove he had carved for her, and then it shattered into a million pieces. "No," she cried, the word tearing from her throat. "You cannot. You must not. The curse, a kiss, would mean your death. It would turn you to cold, unfeeling stone. I would rather live 1,000 years in this solitary prison than see the life extinguished from your eyes, than see you become a monument to my suffering." He took her hand in his, not touching her skin, but cradling her closed fist between his own work-roughened palms. He leaned close, his breath a warm caress on her ear, and whispered a promise that defied the heavens and the curse that bound her. "Then let me love you without lips. Let me love you with my heart, with my soul, with every breath I take. Let that be enough." As if summoned by their impossible, beautiful vow, the forest around them seemed to shift and sigh. An old woman, so ancient she seemed woven from the gnarled roots and lichen of the forest itself, stepped from behind the trunk of an ancient oak. It was Mother Yara, the village mystic who was said to speak with the wind and read futures in the patterns of fallen leaves. Her eyes, milky with age, saw far more than the physical world. "The blood moon approaches," she croaked, pointing a gnarled, trembling finger towards the sky, though the canopy hid it from view. "For one night, once in a blue moon's lifetime, Saloon's power wanes, painted a deep, bloody red by the shadow of our world. On that night, and only that night, the curse is vulnerable. A kiss, born of a love that is utterly pure, a love that seeks nothing. Not glory, not possession, not even a future, but only the other's happiness can shatter the curse like glass." She looked from Kale's determined, scarred face to Leora's terrified, hopeful one. Her final words were a cold, heavy weight settled in their chests. "But heed an old woman's warning. The moon is a jealous judge. If your love is false, or tainted by even a single speck of selfishness or doubt, the curse will not break. It will instead consume you both, and your heart shall perish forever, lost to the void." The choice now lay before them, heavier than any stone and more terrifying than any darkness. Leora turned to Kale, her eyes pleading, filled with a storm of hope and dread. "I cannot ask this of you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The risk is too great. To lose you, that is a fate worse than any cursed saloon could ever devise. A world without you in it is not a world I wish to live in." Kale took her face in his hands, still so careful, still maintaining that fatal, necessary sliver of air between his skin and hers. He looked into her eyes, his own gaze steady and sure. "Leora," he said, his voice a low, firm anchor in her tempest of fear. "A life without the chance to love you fully, to express what is in my heart, is not a life at all. It is merely existing. Even a single, true moment of love is worth 1,000 lifetimes of safe, empty solitude. I would rather one heartbeat as a man who loved you completely than a century as a shadow who was too afraid to try." Seeing the absolute, unshakable resolve in his eyes, a resolve that slowly began to kindle in her own heart, Leora nodded, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. They would face the blood moon together. They would risk everything. As they made their silent pact, a faint, ominous red glow tinged the eastern horizon. The blood moon was not due for a week, yet it seemed the heavens themselves were rushing to meet their destiny. Lady Varen, through her network of spies and the dark, whispering counsel of her mirror spirit, learned of the prophecy. The mirror spirit hissed with a giddy excitement. This is the moment. The transfer is possible. When a mortal kisses her, in that precise second when the curse strains against the power of true love, the moon's essence will be in flux, vulnerable. Seize it then. Use the silver chains to bind the girl and channel the unraveling power to me. I will weave it into your very being. You will become eternal, a goddess of beauty on earth. Varen's heart hammered with a greedy, frantic rhythm. She cared not for love, nor for the sacrifice it required. She saw only the prize, an immortality of perfect, unchanging beauty. She gathered her most loyal, ruthless guards and unspooled lengths of silver chain, metal that was cold and heavy, forged not for binding flesh, but for trapping magic, for snaring spells. She prepared her trap in a clearing she knew the lovers would use, a place where the blood moon's light would fall direct and unfiltered, a stage for a theft. The prophesied night arrived, cloaking the world in a veil of eerie anticipation. The moon, usually a serene silver coin, was a swollen, bloody orb, casting a sinister crimson pall over the landscape. The forest was bathed in this strange, red light, and the very air hummed with ancient, dormant magic, now stirring. In a hidden clearing where rare, luminous moonflowers bloomed only under this specific, bloody light, Kale and Leora stood hand in hand. They were not touching skin to skin, but their spirits were so tightly intertwined they seemed to be one being. They had chosen this natural circle of flowers as their altar, their place of hope or doom. From the edges of the forest, villagers watched, hidden in the shadows of the great trees. They were fearful, awed, and some were even hopeful, their superstitious dread momentarily replaced by the sheer, epic romance of the moment. The world itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the outcome of this celestial gamble. Then, a sudden cold gust of wind snuffed out the few torches they had lit, plunging the clearing into the moon's monochromatic glow. From the deepest shadow, where no shadow should have been able to exist, a figure emerged. It was Lady Varen, her face a mask of avaricious triumph. A touching scene, Varen sneered, her voice cutting through the sacred silence like a shard of glass. The beast and the beauty, ready to defy a goddess. How poetic, and how foolish. Before Kale could even move to stand in front of Leora, Varen's guards were upon him, their grips like iron, holding him back with brutal strength. Varen moved with an unnatural speed granted by her dark mirror spirit, wrapping the silver chains around Leora's arms and torso. The metal sizzled where it touched her, not burning her skin, but stealing her warmth, sapping her will, freezing the very magic within her. Leora cried out as a cold deeper than any winter seeped into her bones. Varen began to chant, the words coming from her mirror spirit, dark, twisting syllables that made the very leaves wither. Kale fought like a man possessed, his love for Leora lending him a ferocious, desperate strength. He threw off one guard, then another, but a third struck him hard from behind with the heavy pommel of the sword. He fell to his knees, a grunt of pain escaping his lips, his vision swimming. Seeing him hurt, a desperate, primal power surged through Leora. Her love for him, a force more potent than any curse, manifested in hot, furious tears that streamed down her face. They fell onto the silver chains, and where they landed, the metal sizzled and smoked, then glowed white-hot and shattered into harmless, glittering dust. The sky itself seemed to rebel. A seam of pure, agonizing silver light ripped through the crimson tapestry of the blood moon, and from it descended the moon goddess Selûne. She was cloaked in cold, swirling silver flame, and her beauty was terrible and awe-inspiring to behold. Her eyes, like twin, burning full moons, scanned the clearing and fixed upon Leora and the wounded Kale. The very trees recoiled from her presence, their branches bending away as if from a great heat. She ignored the cowering Varen. Her divine wrath focused entirely on the two mortals who dared to challenge her will. Saloon's voice was the sound of glaciers breaking apart, a roar of cosmic power. You would steal the adoration that is rightfully mine? You would tempt this mortal to defy my sacred decree. She raised a hand, and from the air she plucked a shard of solidified moonlight, sharp enough to pierce a mountain, cold enough to freeze a sun. It was aimed not at Leora, whom she still saw as her possession, but at Kale. She would destroy the one who dared to love what was hers. Leora screamed, throwing herself in front of him, but they both knew it was a futile gesture against the goddess's wrath. Kale gently, firmly, pushed Leora aside and rose to his knees before the goddess. He did not cower. He did not beg for his life. He looked up at the magnificent, terrifying divine face, his own scarred and mortal, and spoke with a courage that quieted the very forest. "Goddess," he said, his voice clear and steady, carrying over the crackle of her silver fire. "Your quarrel is not with her. It is with your own heart. She has done nothing but live, nothing but bear the burden you placed upon her. If you must punish someone, punish me. Curse me. Turn me to stone for an eternity. I offer my life, my future, my very soul, freely. I make this choice with a full heart. But let her live. Let her know a world without this shadow. Let her be free." He bowed his head, offering his own existence for her chance at happiness, for her freedom. Saloon, whose heart had been a frozen gem of ice for millennia, felt something alien and unsettling. The hand holding the shard of moonlight trembled. A single, brilliant tear, like liquefied diamond, welled in the corner of her celestial eye and fell, sizzling and etching a small, glowing crater into the forest floor. In that fleeting, unprecedented moment of divine hesitation, Kale saw his only chance. The blood moon was at its zenith, its red light a fragile, temporary shield against Saloon's pure, overwhelming silver power. He knew this was the only moment they might ever have. It was now or never. He looked at Leora, her face a heartbreaking map of fear and love and desperate hope, and he made his choice. He surged to his feet, ignoring the pain from his wound, and in one swift, decisive motion, he pulled her to him. He looked into her eyes, poured all his love, all his soul, into that one look, and then he pressed his lips to hers. The world did not just go white, it vanished. The forest, the villagers, the furious goddess, the treacherous Varen, all of it disappeared in a silent, blazing explosion of pure, white light. There was only the kiss. For a single, perfect, timeless heartbeat, Leora felt a warmth she had never known, a connection that filled the emptiness of her entire life, a sense of home so profound it made her want to weep with joy. Then, she felt him stiffen in her arms. A coldness began where their lips met. She pulled back, her eyes flying open in horror. A gray, stone-like texture was crawling up from his lips, spreading over his cheeks, his neck, across his shoulders. It was a wave of petrification, slow and inexorable. A silent, agonized scream tore from her soul. "No, not you. Please, not you." The stone consumed him completely. In the space of a single, ragged breath, Kale was a statue, perfectly captured in his final moment of ultimate sacrifice, his face a mask of love and profound peace. But his eyes were not stone. They remained two living, warm brown pools, glowing with a faint, trapped light, windows to a soul that was still very much alive. He was conscious, aware, imprisoned within his own body, a sentinel of love frozen in time. Leora fell against him, her arms wrapping around his cold, unyielding form, her body racked with sobs that had no sound. She pressed her forehead to his stone chest, where his brave, loving heart had beaten its last for her. You were my life, she sobbed, the words torn from the depths of her being. You were the only one who saw me. If love killed you, then it will kill me too. I will not live in a world where you are only stone. Her warm, salty tears, the physical manifestation of her utter grief and love, flowed freely, dripping onto the stone over his heart. Where each one fell, the unfeeling gray rock sizzled and a tiny, hairline crack appeared, for which a soft, persistent, white light began to pulse, like a heartbeat of hope. Saloon watched, the last of her fury extinguished by the devastating, human spectacle of Leora's raw, all-consuming grief. The goddess saw no victory, only the hollow, bitter consequence of her own petty spite. She saw a love so profound, so selfless, that a mortal man had chosen an eternity of silent, stony imprisonment for a single, true kiss. She saw a woman whose love was so great she was willing to die of a broken heart on the spot. The magnificent silver crown upon Saloon's head, the symbol of her unfeeling, absolute power, cracked with a sound like a falling star, a sharp report that echoed through the clearing. The cold, celestial ice that had encased her own heart for eons finally melted, leaving behind a shocking, painful thaw. She floated down to the forest floor, her immense light, now gentle, sorrowful, humbled. She looked at the sobbing girl clinging to the living statue, and for the first time in her immortal existence, she understood the thing she had coveted and destroyed. "I cursed beauty," she whispered, her voice now like the soft chime of a distant bell, filled with a new-found sorrow. "But I never understood love. I have been the lonely one all along." Lady Varen, seeing the goddess's power wane in her moment of shocking remorse, saw her last, best chance. As Saloon's fractured magic shimmered in the air, motes of pure moonlight falling like dying embers, Varen lunged. "The power is mine," she shrieked, her hands grasping, greedy and desperate. But the magic of love and redemption was not for a heart like hers. The moonlight did not bless her. It repelled her, burning her grasping hands with a cold fire that spread up her arms. She stumbled back, shrieking in pain and frustration, towards her own mirror, which her servant had brought into the clearing. Her reflection, the mirror spirit, reached out from the glass, not to help her, but to claim her. "You promised me eternity," Varen screamed, her eyes wide with terror. "And you shall have it," the spirit hissed, its voice now devoid of all deception, filled only with a cold, final hunger. "An eternity with me." Varen was dragged, kicking and screaming, into the silver glass. The surface rippled like water, and then solidified, trapping her forever with the embodiment of her own bottomless vanity. The mirror then fell to the ground and shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces, leaving behind only a silent, meaningless pile of dust. Saloon approached Leora, who still clung to the statue as if her own life depended on it. "Child," the goddess said, her voice gentle, filled with a regret that spanned centuries. "His sacrifice was born of a love purer than any light I have ever cast across the heavens. I cannot undo his choice, for it was made freely, from a heart of unparalleled courage. But I can give it new meaning. I can honor it." She stretched out her hand, and her light, now warm, benevolent, and filled with a poignant sadness, washed over the stone figure. Where the stone had been gray and dead, life burst forth in a silent, beautiful explosion. From Kale's stony form, moonflowers bloomed in profusion, their petals the color of captured moonlight, their centers glowing with a soft, golden light, the color of Kale's spirit. Each flower held a flicker of his essence, his kindness, his courage, his quiet strength, his unwavering love. Then, Saloon turned to Leora. The unearthly, frozen beauty that had been her curse, and her prison faded, like a mist burned away by the morning sun, leaving behind a warm, mortal, and truly lovely young woman. The curse was broken. Her beauty was now her own, human and fleeting. As the first rays of the true, golden sun touched the horizon, banishing the last of the bloody night. Selûne, the moon goddess, vanished from the sky, her absence a palpable thing for the first time in centuries. Leora built a small, simple cottage near the clearing, which had been transformed into a permanent garden of the glowing moonflowers. She spent her days tending to Kale's statue, which was now covered in a living, breathing tapestry of vines and luminous blossoms. The flowers seemed to whisper on the wind, and sometimes, in the hush of the evening, she could almost hear his voice, a gentle murmur of love and comfort. The villagers, deeply ashamed of their past cruelty and inspired by Kale's sacrifice, came to honor the statue. They called him the Stone Lover, a hero who had challenged a goddess for love and, in his own way, won. Children would leave small, clumsily carved tokens at the statue's base, a wooden bird, a rough-hewn star. The clearing became a sacred place, a place of quiet peace, breathtaking beauty, and reflection. Leora lived her new, mortal life, her heart forever tied to the garden and the man who had become part of it. One night, as she slept with her head resting against the statue's base, she was woken not by a sound, but by a feeling, a deep, resonant vibration. Then she heard it, a deep, slow, rhythmic thud. It was a heartbeat, echoing softly but surely from within the stone. From a void where she had hidden herself in shame and mourning, Selûne watched the garden. She saw Leora's unwavering devotion and felt the enduring, powerful love that pulsed from the statue and the flowers that had sprung from it. Her shame was a heavier crown than any she had worn before. She had envied a mortal girl for a love she, a powerful goddess, could never inspire. She realized she had been the truly lonely one all along, isolated in her cold perfection. Making her final, ultimate decision, Selûne shed her divine form. Her immense power dissolved, scattering into a gentle, silvery rain that blessed the sleeping world. In its place, she became a single, brilliant, new star in the sky, a star of remorse, hope, and second chances. Its first light, a soft, blue-silver beam, fell directly upon the statue in the garden. The light pooled around Kale's stone lips, and as it touched them, they softened, losing their stony gray for a moment, and moved, forming a silent, breathless word. It was a name, her name. Leora, waking from her sleep, saw it. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her heart leaping in her throat. Kale did not return to flesh and blood. His sacrifice was eternal. The laws of magic and mortality could not be completely rewritten. But as the light from Selûne's new star enveloped him, his stone hand warmed under Leora's touch. His eyes, which had always held the captured light of his soul, now crinkled at the corners with a deep, abiding love. He looked at her, and he smiled. It was a smile of infinite love, peace, and completion. It was a goodbye and a promise, all in one. Then, his form dissolved, not into dust, but into a shower of the gentlest, warmest moonlight, which wrapped around Leora, seeping in her heart, settling in her soul, becoming a part of her forever. She felt his presence, not as a memory, but as a constant, warm companion, a strength inside her that would never fade. Every full moon after, her garden would glow with an ethereal, loving light, and the moonflowers would bloom with particular brilliance, filling the air with a sweet, sad scent. Lovers from all over the valley, and eventually from all over the world, would come to pray there, not for beauty or for gifts, but for the courage to love despite fear, to risk everything for a single, true moment of connection, just as Kale had. True beauty fades, but love that dares, love that defies fear, becomes eternal.